Some men arrived in a place and are never noticed. Others arrive quietly and change the way a town remembers silence. Bansi was one of those men. To the people of Katuraj, he was a mystery. To the children, he was a friend. To the old men at the arbor, he was a habit they could not explain. A man with a flute who played like he was remembering something the rest of them had forgotten. 20 years after he arrived in the town, he died beneath a mikhood tree. But by then, Katuraj had already learned something it did not have words for. But before the music, before the questions, before the silence he left behind, he was simply a stranger who arrived a rainy day with a wooden box and no story anyone knew yet. Bansi arrived in Cargo Raj on a day the rain refused to stop. He stepped off a taxi from Dubai with a wooden box under his arm and nothing else. No luggage, no explanation, no urgency. His shoes were broken, his clothes too tiny for the weather, but he spoke gently, like someone who had learned not to demand too much from life. "Thank you, brother," he told the driver, as though the journey had been a favor done for him. He rented a small sack behind the butcher. No water, no comforts, no ease, only a leaking roof and silence that stretched too far. He fixed the roof himself. Then he disappeared into the town like he had always belonged there. Until the 8th night. It started near the arbor. At first, it was mistaken for wind. Then it returned, clearer, heavier, older, a flute, not polished, not new, a cracked piece of wood carrying breath like memory. And something strange happened when he played. The air changed. It did not feel like music. It felt like permission to stop. Fisherman Tambo would later say, "My hands just stopped working, like the sound told me I could rest." Sizwe never explained himself. He did not perform. He did not collect attention. If money was left for him, he would have quietly placed it at the nearest church. "For the lights," he would say, and still people came. First, curiosity, and then silent seekers. Then those who no longer knew what they were looking for. No one asked where he came from. Katuraj had learned something important. Some people arrived already carrying a reason to be left unasked. Tandy was 11 when she found him. She did not find him in a plain way. She followed the sound and found a man sitting under a crate, eyes closed, playing to no one and somehow to everything. She sat nearby, quiet. He noticed her only when he stopped. "You have a good ears," he said. "I don't know anything about music," she replied. "That's good," he said. "Music is for people who do not know anything yet." She came back the next night, and the next night, and the next night. He never taught her like a teacher. He played, she tried, she failed, and he nodded like failure was part of learning how to exist. Slowly, she became something more than a child listening at the harbor. She became something being shaped by silence. People always try to explain him. A teacher who lost students, a musician who felt a broken band, a man escaping from something or moving towards something he never reached. Sizwe never corrected them until one night when the town was restless and burning tires light the road with anger. Tandy asked him, "Did you ever fight?" "I fought," he said. "With Fritz?" "No." "With what?" "With a story, and I lost." Silence. Then he added, "It was a story that said people are more than what they are afraid of." The other story was louder. He picked up his flute, so I learned to play the quiet one, so I wouldn't forget it exists. That was all he ever said. On Tuesday, the rain came earlier. Sizwe walked to the arbor at dawn. Same path, same sea, same tree, waiting like it always had. He sat beneath it. He played for 1 hour. Then he stopped, but he did not stand. He leaned back against a tree, closed his eyes, and let the flute fall across his chest. And the world did not interrupt him again. When Mrs. Kumalo found him, she did not yet know he was looking at an ending, only stillness. Katuraj doesn't mourn loudly, it gathers. It remembers in groups too small to all ceremony. Sizwe's funeral was set on Thursday, but on Wednesday night, the town returned to the meekwood tree. Thandi placed the fruit on the ground. "If he was here," she said softly, "he would say anyone can try." Old man Joseph tried first. The sound came out wrong. He tried again, still wrong, but something in it was alive. Then others followed. A mechanic, a market woman, 2 boys who usually stole mangoes because hunger does not wait for permission. None of them played it well, but all of them tried. And together, it stopped being failure. It became anticipation. Tambo said quietly, "He would have hated this. It's mercy." Mrs. Kumalo replied, "Maybe he liked that we are mercy for him." The funeral had no speeches, only presence. Tandy read 3 notes written on paper. She did not play them, only spoke them into the air like something fragile being returned. After that, life continued as it always does. But something had shifted. Tandy kept the flute. She played it every Tuesday, badly, honestly, and others began to try as well. Not in public, not for attention, but in the kitchens. In quiet moments where silence used to feel heavier. A music teacher from Duba once heard her and said, "You don't need to know anything to begin." Tanji replied, "A man already told me that." 5 years later, Tandy stood on the stage in Dubai. Her hands shook. The flute felt heavier than memory, but familiar. She lifted it up and played. Not perfect, not polished, but real. When she finished, the silence held for 3 seconds. Then the applause came. Not polite, not routine, but understanding. Afterwards, a journalist asks, "Who taught you to play like this?" Tandy answered, "A man who believed the quiet story matters." He's gone now, but the story stayed. The milkwood tree is still there. People still pass it. Some still sit beneath it when the wind slows down. No flutes played there anymore. Tandy took it with her. But sometimes, when the air moves just right, the town pauses. Not because it hears music, but because it remembered what it once felt like to listen. And somewhere in that remembering, the quiet story continued.